Welcome to the fediverse podcast, a show covering the challenges of building a new internet. I'm your fediverse host, Paige, and with me today is Jeremy Flatt. It's not Victor. Jeremy and I go way back. We've been kind of democracy advocates and rebel rousers for quite some time. Jeremy, where is it that you live? Can you tell me a little bit about this place?
So I live in Yellowknife, where we met many years ago. A large town or small city, I guess small city, in the Northwest Territories, population about 20,000. You know, we got more stuff than your average city because we're the kind of transportation hub for the Northwest Territories, but it's still small enough where, you know that delightfully cozy relationship with your city councillors and government of all levels and stuff like that.
You've got that kind of, you walk into the coffee shop in the morning and you see the councillor or the mayor and you can go over and chin wag.
Yeah, it's like that Simpsons episode where Bart upsets the Australians, and the guy's like, that's outrageous, I'm going to go to my MP about this, and he's just like the guy over the fence, and then the guy goes to the Premier, you know how it goes. It's like that.
So Yellowknife, I think, it's an unusual town, but I think a lot of the dynamics are small town dynamics.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. I think that the fun thing about it is it's a bit of a microcosm of Canada as a whole. It's a government town. It's like a tiny mini Ottawa. Most people here do things like I do for a living, like they write grant applications for things and then report on those grants that they get. And life revolves around government. So you get this kind of close-up view of how government functions, and I imagine it's just like a smaller version of how it works in larger municipalities.
So today, we're kind of using Yellowknife as a bit of a case study for a municipality that, like many municipalities, has its collection of social media accounts and, things done the 2010s way. And Jeremy's come along and decided... What have you decided, Jeremy?
I'm one of these people who, as soon as something pops up over the news horizon, I really love to jump on it and make it my cause right off the bat. Shortly after, Musk did his Nazi salute thing and really finally, I think it's sort of the final nail in the coffin of pretending that Twitter is anything other than what it is, or X or whatever the fuck it's called. I have a friend who is a city councillor, and I like to bother him with issues that are well outside his remit and pester him about why he's not taking a more symbolic kind of moral stand on things. And he's mostly quite patient with me, so I messaged him about this thing saying, when's the city planning to drop, X and other social medias, whatnot. And he kind of tried to politely say, it's not really a priority for me right now. And, we had a bit of a heated exchange. And it sort of left me thinking that, on the one hand, yes, I want my city to abandon this, hate platform. But I am looking for something a little more than that. I don't have any social media apart from Mastodon, which I don't think I really know how to use properly. But I've still enjoyed the experience so far. With my limited understanding of how the internet works in general, I like what I've heard so far about the Fediverse, and I feel like there's an opportunity for municipalities to look at federated, is that the right word to use in this situation? Federated sort of social media as an alternative to these large platforms. And one of the big advantages would be that the cities would have ownership over their own data. And we would avoid the risk of, this happening in the future, where if we move to something like Blue Sky or what have you, there's every chance that 3-4 years down the line, someone else will turn out to be a massive Nazi as well, and we'll have to ditch that platform. So it's sort of like a Nazi-proofing measure. But as I said, my ignorance about how the internet works in general and the Fediverse is pretty, I'd say I'm above averagely ignorant about these things. So I'm hoping to get a little bit of an education on that stuff through you.
Okay, so this is like a bit of a project. Jeremy, with his proximity to the city councillors and people in government in this small town, understands the principles behind why this stuff is good, and then can talk to me and Victor about his experience trying to convey that information to some regular people and kind of report back here and tell us, how that went, and maybe get some answers to some questions that a typical small town bureaucracy might have about jumping on Mastodon or PixelFed or PeerTube or whatever. So what happened this week?
Yeah, so the first interaction was the one I described, where I sent the 10 p.m. text message to my friend saying, look at this outrageous thing. don't you just feel like something needs to be done immediately? Drop what you're doing. I don't care about the roads or whatever it is that's gone wrong, the wildfire. Yeah. And that kind of left me thinking, well, I'm going to have to change tack here. I can't do my usual thing of pestering people in person. So I decided I'd send emails to some of the other councillors who I know, and they're the younger ones who I thought would at least have some kind of inkling of where I was going. So I sent out emails and I got replies from 2 out of the 4 that I messaged.
Okay.
And I'm going to meet with one of them next week to have a bit more of an in-depth talk about it. But the 2 of them, plus my friend, kind of raised the same concern, which is basically that, one, it was a reluctance to kind of wade into what could be perceived as a kind of a culture war type issue or gesture politics or something like that, when the city should be doing city business. That sort of kind of come up in different wordings in each of the interactions. The other objection was that in our particular case, the city is very busy and poor. We have a very large capital project coming to completion now, a new aquatic centre being built, which is expensive and cool. We had a very expensive 2023 with the wildfire evacuations and the emergency hiring of contractors and stuff like that. So the city's been doing a lot of kind of scrambled and hasty book balancing, and they don't have a lot of bandwidth to deal with these sorts of issues. The city council meets every week or 2 weeks or whatever, and they have their subcommittees that meet every so often. And that's the side of things I'm hoping to get a little bit more of an insight on from them. Any meeting item that makes it onto an agenda is another item that gets dropped, right? So they're kind of reluctant to take up any meeting time with something like this that's essentially going to just fall down maybe partisan lines or whatever. So it's a perspective that I'm sympathetic to. They're under so much pressure directly from constituents to just fix things that are immediately obviously wrong and obviously within their remit, right? That like anything that could be construed as a distraction is very politically inconvenient. But the third thing that they mentioned was that they already kind of struggle to connect with residents anyway through their existing channels. They use Facebook, they use Instagram, and they use X. I think they struggle to get information out to people. They're wary of making it even more difficult by moving off to any other social media platform where there aren't so many people. So those are the 3 that kind of came up in the emails that I got.
Okay.
So not so much practical obstacles as yet.
Well, one of the practical obstacles that you mentioned, like kind of point 1, was like price or limited resources. I think if you said to them like, well, what do you think it would cost to host a fediverse instance per year? That would be interesting to ask. I have a feeling they'd be surprised to learn that it's $6 a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the cost that they're concerned about is less the cost of the service itself and more the staff time involved in the various bureaucratic steps that have to be taken to migrate from one platform to another. That would be that was my read of what they said. And I think that's partly because any decision like this, as I understand it, has to actually go through council. This isn't something that could be made at the staff level based on an existing policy or something like that. That is something that I want to clarify, though, because I don't know if the use of Twitter, as it was, or Facebook, was ever sanctioned by a council decision in the first place. So if it wasn't, then do we need a new council decision to undo it? I don't know. It seems to me like you overcome difficulty number 2 and number 1 if you can just get around having to get council to formally approve moving off one social media platform to another. If you can just say, look, here's a really quick and easy way you can get yourselves out of an unpleasant situation and no one even really has to know about it. Like it doesn't have to be a big hot button issue that draws out all of the whoever they are who still think X is a really good thing. And I don't know if those people exist. They do. I'm sure they do.
We're also speaking during the first week of the US-Canadian trade war. And it does just seem like you can kind of, like, it'd be very easy now to show of hands in almost any town in Canada who wants to dump the American platform.
And I do think the crucial thing is having the nice, quick, easy thing there to show and say, hey, look, let's use this instead. Whereas I think if you start the decision-making process, you get that ball rolling and it's all open-ended as to what you might do if you did get rid of this thing and blah, 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 then that's where your council time gets used up and your administrative costs, or not administrative, your staff costs dealing with the issue, they just skyrocket too. Like, you're paying 8 people $40 an hour to back and forth over, the pros and cons of this, that, or the next thing. If you've got a really nice, simple thing for them to migrate to, I think that changes the equation for them somewhat.
Yeah, or maybe the way to think of it is, decouple leaving Twitter and joining Mastodon, and just turn it into joining Mastodon so that you can, at some point, leave Twitter. Next time there's another one of these moments.
And there will be a next time. This is the thing.
It's very reliable at this point, so...
And this was sort of in the response that I sent, was like, I am sympathetic to your issues, but like, I think we all know that a reckoning is coming on this stuff. It would be nice to be one of the organizations that ditches these things while there's still some kind of moral credibility to be gained from doing that, rather than being the absolute last one out the door, being like, I'm fine, I guess we'll use someone who isn't a Nazi.
I'm thinking about this. I'm like, well, would it be helpful if FediHost had a page called like government transition or whatever, and just kind of like had a rate like, for $200 we will meet with your team, help you change your DNS over, like kind of consulting consultatron, consult the like a kind of like, so that the bureaucrat who doesn't understand the thing knows that we're gonna do a video call, explain the thing, hold their hand.
I imagine that would be helpful. I think the only thing, if you're like you say, the service you're offering is like $200 for a consultation and hosting for a year or something like that, or for $300. If it stays under a certain limit, then it's eligible for procurement without any kind of like open competitive process type thing. So, because again, like, how municipalities do these things, there's all these processes that have to be followed, and but obviously they didn't go through any of that to use these social media services, right? They just, because there's no fee or anything like that, they would have probably just fallen into using them, I expect. I think at this stage, or at least in my little project, the helpful thing would be some talking points about, okay, so let's say the city wants to set up these fediverse equivalents of the services they currently use. So they have somebody who's in their comms team who's responsible for posting on Facebook and on Twitter and on X and on Instagram. And I think something that would make duplicating your social media posts to equivalent platforms very, very simple. And it may already be really simple, right? And this is where my own sort of ignorance comes in. But something that, you could set them up with this, even just something that explains, and again, maybe this is for my benefit more than anything else, but you talked about an instance, right? An instance, what is that?
So
I can't think of a better way to kind of refine the question.
Just think of it like it's a website. Right. You have the Mastodon website at whatever address. So it would be like social.yellowknife.ca. Mm-hmm. And here is where you see anything that the government in Yellowknife has chosen to say, but also the fire department could have an account, the school boards. You could kind of, as a municipal organization, have a process for hosting the community's accounts. And at that location, on the home feed, you could kind of see what's going on in Yellowknife government.
On that instance, how do the different apps that you mentioned work with that? So you've got this, would there be one place where you would see the city's postings on Mastodon, on PixelFed, on the other one that you mentioned? PeerTube, yeah. I
would probably, just for a city, have Mastodon. Like PeerTube, it's like, do they have videos they want to host? If they do, maybe they could look into it. But if they're not really regularly hosting videos, like... I think you probably just start off with being like, Mastodon is the largest kind of ecosystem. There'll be people in Yellowknife who want to follow Yellowknife things on Mastodon, and are currently unable to. And you can post images on Mastodon. Like if the city does want to post some pictures of the Northern Lights or whatever, they can post that.
I love that that's your idea of what the city would be posting. Not far off the truth, but
PixelFed is like Instagram, right?
Right.
Mastodon's like Twitter. And you can it's pretty easy for Mastodon to cover basic functionality of image posting and video clips. Like you can post video clips too. Whereas like PeerTube, it's really just for videos, and PixelFed, it's really just for images.
And when you post content to PixelFed and PeerTube, that data, like that you're posting, like that goes onto this hosting that's saved on your own hosting that you own, rather than it being on some PixelFed server somewhere.
Yeah. So PixelFed and Mastodon, they run their own large instances, which they almost use as a like test environment. You know, they have a user base and they can see how the code runs on these larger instances. So Mastodon.social is the Mastodon instance, and I think it's pixelfed.social is PixelFed's. But then there's thousands of others in the case of Mastodon running. And so the city would have its own instance, its own, like basically a server. If they use a service like FediHost, they can click download to download a copy of all their data, and they can take that elsewhere. Kind of like email, you know, like I've done it a few times, had an email system set up on like Microsoft Exchange and then shifted it over to Google Workplace.
Right.
You can transfer the information over, provided it's your domain. And then you can also migrate accounts. So the city of Yellowknife could start off with Yellowknife at mastodon.social on the main Mastodon instance. And then after a year or two, create an instance, create mastodon.yellowknife.ca and migrate the account over to it, kind of consolidate various social media accounts they might have.
Maybe that's the first step to take in this test case then, because like I think the most potent counter argument that comes to mind right off the bat, this idea that we're having a hard enough time reaching residents using our existing channels. What about the residents who don't want to use, Nazi social media platform? Like, people like me who want to be just maintain an absolute moral purity.
So pure.
Yeah, absolutely. Just could not possibly sully myself with that sort of a place. And I find it deeply unfair as a taxpayer that I should have to even consider going there for important information. If it's so important, that information should be available to morally pure individuals such as myself.
Maybe you go around town and you find the people who use Mastodon, and you sign a group letter. We are the town's residents who use this service. And
I like that idea.
To be able to see what the fire update is, or if the trail got groomed, or whatever.
I love writing a good snippy letter, nice and passive aggressive. That's a specialty of mine. So I like that idea a lot, especially with lots of signatures. We the undersigned.
I think it makes sense. Like if you to anyone in Yellowknife City Council who ends up watching this, like, yeah, it's like, oh, well, maybe this is just to sell some hosting or whatever.
No.
It is worth, like, I don't know, $4 a year. Like, that's not.
Watch out. Watch the pennies page. You look after the pennies, the pounds take care of themselves. That's the.
For us, I think this exercise is like, what's the rational progress? Maybe, yeah. And if you can say to them, it's free. Mastodon.social is the standard. It's run by the non-profit that runs Mastodon. Maybe that's the easiest lift.
I think so. In Cabin Radio, they have a Mastodon account. They post on Mastodon every day, and Cabin Radio is, they're very popular in the city. They've done great things.
They actually have a Mastodon account?
Well, they have they post on Mastodon.
I wonder if that's their WordPress plugin that's posting it.
Possibly. We're about to have a visitor. Hello, sweetheart. How are you doing? Look, there's Paige. Come and say hello, and then you can.
Hello.
Hey. Is that Eleanor?
Why do you have a microphone, Daddy?
Where's my microphone? This is my microphone.
Why do you have a microphone?
So they can hear my voice. It also makes you look super pro if you have like a proper microphone in the screen. Well,
He has a bigger one.
he does have a bigger one, doesn't he?
Thanks.
Why?
Yeah.
I used to have one of those big ones too. It's a PD day today, so the kids are home from school, which means a lot of TV for those little guys today. But she did go skating, so I don't feel too bad about it.
So you said the first thing's price and cost. Pricing can be free or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that the city wants to wade into? as far as a culture war topic. I think by starting a Mastodon account and not closing the Twitter account, you avoid that. I also think that the truth is, I've never seen Canadian nationalism like this before. I just don't think that it's hard. He may have done a Nazi salute, but if you're a Canadian, he's also part of a group of people who want to turn your country into a state.
A vassal to the emperor forever.
So this would be my suggestion to you. Just go real, the lightest possible light touch where it's so reasonable. Like, how could you say no? Like, you can set up on the technical side of things, the tools that communications people typically use to post can add accounts. So you add Instagram, you add Twitter, Hootsuite and all that sort of thing, right? They'll be able to add Mastodon. If you talk to a communications person and say, like, do you use a tool to post? Or do you guys just go to each service and type it in? That I can kind of understand. If they're like, well, we only have, 10 followers on Mastodon and we're having to, for everything we say, type it into another spot.
One thing that I think is a really big selling point of Mastodon is this, the ability to, and the constant reminders to add alt text to images. Highlighting that to the city as an accessibility consideration would probably resonate with them pretty strongly. Like they've come under fire for accessibility issues in the past, and they're working pretty hard to improve their accessibility in general for like city facilities, but also just everything they do. I don't think that would be a difficult ask at all, really. And I do think that going kind of sidestepping the big debate kind of thing is really the way to do it. As much as I really would love to have the opportunity to go and make a stirring speech and have my city councillors kind of moralise on things and get distracted from their day-to-day business, I do think that that's only going to delay a useful and practical thing. And what's my ultimate goal? My ultimate goal is to make it so that, our city abandons, Musk and co, and that other people see that there's a very easy way to do it. And it'd be just great if Yellowknife was one of the kind of vanguard cities to do it rather than one of the very last.
We know how that goes.
When we got a case of COVID here, I posted something, well, at least we finally got something before Whitehorse. Shame it had to be a deadly virus.
I think in this case, Yellowknife just represents a typical municipality. I think it's very normal. I think there is probably thousands of people across Canada right now who are the enthusiast early adopter of an activity pub based federated network, and they're saying like, hey, can you do this? And a lot of communications people and government staff are just hearing about it for the first time. Communications people are not in tech, nor are they in kind of like activism, and social causes, especially. So, this is just another email landing on their desk. Just getting a group of people together, asking for a thing, explaining like literally where we want to use it.
Great. Okay. So next step then for me is I've got my coffee meeting with one of the other councillor next week, and I'm waiting for another email back. So maybe they'll have some more comments from me, but I will in between now and the next time you want to, I don't know, when do you want to talk about this next? How does this work?
I think maybe just like save up the stories, like note them down.
I'll draft my snippy letter and I can read it for you and you can give me some notes.
I'm already dreading this letter.
No, you're going to love it, Paige. You're going to love it. It's going to be great. To whom it may concern, really
not
understand.
Too fucking passive aggressive, right?
You got to let me have my fun. All right. Thanks, Paige.
Cool. So good luck, Jeremy. And thanks for listening or watching out there on the Fediverse. Comment away if you can relate to this situation. Are you a person who's been trying to get, an institution like your city or your school to jump on the Fediverse? Let us know how it's going. And subscribe so you can follow the adventures of Jeremy as he navigates his way through the city bureaucracy to get one small request fulfilled for a citizen.
Good one. Well, thanks for having me, Paige. I'll speak to you soon.
All right. See you next time, Jeremy.